Hi folks, just want to talk to you today about feet. Now for our applique we generally don't use our standard sewing foot. And the reason why is that because underneath there is no slip or channel for the stitches that have been formed to run through the foot evenly. So what we want is we want a foot that's got to have a channel through the bottom so as that when the stitches work, they work and they don't get held up at all with the contact of the foot and the feed dogs. Now this here is the satin stitch foot for this particular machine, and so what it does is that we can use this for applique, but I do find that when the foot is down there's a bit of interruption just right inside the foot here that means that I can't see. So when I come to a point, or something, I really cannot see totally where I am because there's a bit of an illusion happening through the piece of plastic. So hence, we have a foot like so, which is an applique foot. Now the applique foot comes in metal or it comes in plastic. So we have both for this particular machine. Some brands only have plastic, some brands only have metal. There's a big difference between the two of them as far as they feel. As far as they work much of a muchness. I think the metal one glides a little bit better. But then if you lighten your foot pressure, you don't really notice any difference. I always lighten my foot pressure just one notch so as that when I'm turning corners or curves, the machine turns a little bit more freely and I don't have to just do step by step by step by step. So lightening your foot pressure by one notch. So basically my standard setting on this machine is 3, I go down to 2, so it's 2 in pressure. So to put on our okay, so there's our foot, and it's got the channel for the stitches to be forming underneath. And so you can see that when I go into applique mode, I can see quite clearly where my first stitch is going to stitch. Now I have got a machine that I can put my applique stitch towards the right hand side of the foot. So standard setting, generally applique is made by the stitch going the outside bar and then across, outside bar, across, outside bar, across, etc. Or you can have what we call a single pass, which is instead of the outside bar just being a back and forward, it's just one. And that's true buttonhole stitch, that's true traditional stitch 146, how I was trained, and it's a beautiful stitch, very very simple. But for what we use the double edge so that it gives you a little bit more shadow along the edge of your raw edge applique. I didn't originally like that look, but I've actually grown to love it in there because I like the actual shadow that it gives. Especially if you're using a contrast in colour, you actually get a defined line. So rather than stitching in the middle of our foot here, I prefer to stitch to the outside of the foot. So I prefer it to be over here. So my setting is I can shift the position of my applique to the right hand side. Now not every machine can do this, but if you can, it does have some advantages. And I'll show you why. It means that when I come to start my work, I can see this little window right up in the corner here. Let's go a little bit closer so you can see. This little window right up in the corner, I can see where my first stitch is going to drop. And that's exactly where it's going to be. and I can use the edge of my foot to run along the edge of my fabric, and it creates for a very straight line, but it's also easy if you're going to be doing this for long periods of time. You don't really almost even have to steer the work. Having the edge of the foot also gives you a very, very easily identified dropping point for your stitch. It's not all up in the air. So that's why I prefer that. I mean, it says if you haven't got that facility on your machine, you just don't have it. But it's something which I've actually grown used to, and I thought I would actually talk to you about, because that is how I managed to get my applique working so evenly and so quickly. See, I can see that window right there. Now, before I had this available to me, I used it in the middle like everybody else does. But I was never happy with my corners. And so I can actually go quite fast. And I'm happy with the corners. There we go. So that's just a few little techniques. Whether you have the metal or you have the plastic, it makes no real difference. It makes no real difference. If you find that your plastic is slightly gripping, then get a little bit of polish or wax or silicone and just rub the bottom of it from there. But make sure you rub the silicone off. You don't want it attaching to your fabric. Just let that give a bit of polish on the bottom of that, then it will be nicer. If your foot pressure is too high, you'll be able to hear this grip. It grips to your top layer of fabric. And as I said, I like using my batik, so that makes a huge difference. When I rub this on the cotton, it's fine. When I rub this on the batik, it has a bit of resistance, so that's why I prefer to have the metal foot. But an open toe is better than not having an open toe. On saying that, sometimes when you have a very, very hard fabric, very dense fabric, you do sometimes get the odd dropped stitch because the fabric isn't being held firmly in front of the needle, and what it does, it allows the fabric to slightly flag inside the window that's cut out there, so you can get the odd dropped stitch. So bear in mind, if you are getting that, then just due to composite of what's on the back of your work, whether you're using batting, what's on the top of your work, how many layers you're doing, it sometimes pays to actually change up to a foot that has a bar across it, so as that you can put some tension on the fabric under the foot while it's creating the stitch. Sometimes it can be just one colour, one level. It could be the third layer of applique on your design. Hope that helps you. Happy stitching.